Welcome to the July 15th edition of Monday Motivation, PowerPoints for Successful Christian Living. We're glad you're here to join us. Today's topic is don't be a victim. Don't be a victim. Now, I can figure probably what you're thinking right now is anybody who's been on this planet for more than a couple of years has been a victim in one way or another. So let me go into a bit of detail and explain what I mean by don't be a victim. Or it might even be better to say, don't continue to be a victim. We have all been victims at some point in our life. It happens in many different ways. It could be bullying, it could be racism, it could be prejudice, it could be a fight on the street, being attacked on the street. It could be oppression from government, or authorities sometimes victimize people. We've all been victims at some point in our life, and some of us continue to be victims right now. But when this happens, there's three ways we can respond, or a combination of three ways. One, we could brush it off. If it's something minor, if a coworker makes an offensive comment or somebody's having a bad day, if it's something minor, we might decide that, hey, this is not worth the time and effort. I'm not going to let it affect me. And we just brush it off, sweep it away, ignore it. There are other times, though, where the victimization goes deep enough that we need to fight it. So, for example, what the black community is experiencing right now, the systemic racism and problems that they face on an ongoing basis, it doesn't mean that the rest of us don't have similar problems. It's just what I'm hearing is it goes much deeper and is more systemic towards the black community. So they are choosing to fight it. And I'm proud that many people from other cultures are coming around to help them. They're fighting it through protests. You can fight it through the legal system, through human rights commissions. There's different ways to fight it. But choosing to fight it is often necessary to end that victimization. If you're in a situation where you're being bullied or harassed, you need to fight that. You need to fight back. And it may mean you need to go to the authorities. You have to go to police. You have to go to somebody in authority. If it's at school, you have to go to a teacher or a principal. You might have to use the legal system. You might have to protest. There's different ways that we can fight back. But when it's serious enough, we do not continue to be a victim. We have to put an end to it. And in fighting back, if you don't get a response from the first person, or if the first time doesn't work, go to the next, and the next, and the next. But don't give up. The third option is we just give up and we adopt a victim mindset. And that is the point that I really want to drive home today. We do not want to adopt a victim mindset. And this isn't a black or white problem. It affects everybody. Everybody at some point has been the victim of racism or the victim of prejudice. My own personal example, I'm short. Well, short people statistically don't do as well in the corporate world. They don't make as much money. They don't advance as far. I'm a Christian. On a global scale, Christians are the most persecuted group in the world. Even our own government denies benefits to Christians that they will give to other people who sign off on their statement of faith. Government ideology discriminates against Christians. I'm white, I'm male. There are people who, rather than looking at our forefathers and saying, hey, they gave us a great country, they're not perfect, there's problems that we still need to deal with, but they gave us a great country. That's why Canada's ranked one of the best countries in the world. But because they weren't perfect and because there are problems, they choose now to blame every white male for the problems of today. Well, hold on. That in itself is prejudice. You are prejudging me based on what other people who are white males have done. So we're all victims of prejudice at some point or another. And I don't say this to take away from what the black community is experiencing. We support you. We want to see an end. You don't need to be a victim, and we support you. So I don't mean to take away, but what I'm trying to say is it's not a black versus white problem. It's not an us versus them problem. It is a problem within the human race. I know white people that are prejudiced. I know black people that are prejudiced. It is a human condition. So not to take away from what the black community is experiencing. We love you. We want to support you. But don't make it a black versus white. Politicians use division to accomplish purposes. Special interest groups, media, they want to create division. Let's move on past that division. If you're in a situation where you're being victimized, reach out for help. Don't stay in that situation. I can't understate how important that is. Reach out to friends. Reach out to somebody who can help you through that situation. And if you don't get it the first time, keep reaching out. That is so important. It could be bullying. It could be racism. It could be abuse from a spouse or a partner or a coworker. Don't stay in that situation. Reach out for help. Why is it so important not to fall into the trap of a victim mindset? Well, first of all, let's look at what the scripture says. There's many good thoughts on how we are God's children, how we don't operate out of fear. I just picked one, but do a Bible study on it if you need to. Romans 8:15. The Spirit you received does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. We do not need to live in fear. Rather, the Spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship. And that's gender neutral. It's inclusive, sons and daughters. God has adopted us. When you became a Christian, when you accepted Christ, God has adopted us into the family. We are not slaves anymore. We do not give in to fear, but we are sons and daughters of God. He has adopted us. And we don't operate out of fear. And when you continue with a victim mindset, you haven't embraced what God has given us. You are operating out of fear. We don't need to do that. When you maintain that victim mindset, you become a target. I talked about being short. That was really, really hard in grades 7 and 8 because you got these bigger kids trying to make a name for themselves, and they always pick on the easy targets. So being short, oh, there's an easy target. But I never gave in to a victim mindset. And when they realized I wasn't going to play the victim, they moved on to other targets. And I've seen that even in the corporate environment, where somebody who's a victim then becomes a target for those who need to bully somebody. So you immediately make yourself a target when you adopt that victim mindset. You, in fact, further the victimization because that becomes your normal. I had a cousin. You'll never meet her. She was murdered. But leading up to that, she had an abusive boyfriend. She hooked up with this guy. It was, evident that it was abusive. Her family pulled her out of the situation. She lived with her family for a few months, went back. They pulled her out again. But she didn't stay with her family. She had a victim mindset, and she moved back in with the guy again. Because that was her normal. It felt normal to be a victim. And finally, murdered her. She's gone. But if she had let go of that victim mindset and said, I'm going to fight this, I am not going to be a victim, she could have broken free of that. But unfortunately, she was able to before it was too late. Another consequence of having a victim mindset is we start to see the world through a distorted lens. We start to see people through a distorted lens. I've been victimized by somebody from another culture. And if I had stayed a victim, if I had stayed in that mindset, now I would be operating out of fear, and I would then say, oh, I need to protect myself, so I'm going to start mistrust now everybody I meet from that culture. You see how racism breeds out of that? But I chose not to hang on to that. I chose to forgive, and forgiveness is so important. I chose to forgive, and I chose to not be a victim. I did fight it appropriately, and eventually won that situation. But through it all, I did not take how that individual was victimizing me and transfer that to the culture. If I was operating in fear now, I would start to fear and mistrust everybody from that culture, and I would have missed out on many great friendships. But I chose not to define the culture based on that person. But a victim mindset, we start to see things in a distorted type of way. We have to choose to forgive. We have to choose love over hate. Not staying in the situation, but not choosing to hate that person or hate their peers or their group because of that situation. We have to choose that bad experience. We have to take that bad experience, and we have to make the choice not to let it become prejudiced or prejudge other people because of that bad experience. It's a choice. We choose to forgive. We choose to love. We choose to not let the bad experience allow us to become prejudiced towards others. We treat each person as an individual. My challenge to you this week, if you're in a situation where you're being victimized, do what you need to do to break out. Don't be a victim. Don't stay there. Break out of it. Get the help you need and keep reaching out until you finally do get that help. And second of all, if you're not currently being victimized, when was the last time you were? Were you able to break free from that mindset, or do you still carry around a victim mindset? If you do, pray for strength, pray for wisdom, break free of that mindset. Don't keep the victim mindset. Do you know people who are in a situation where they're being victimized? Be there to help them. Be there to support them. To the Black community right now, we support you. We're here for you. We're here to help you. The bad white people that you've encountered don't define the white culture. Don't prejudge us. For the times that we've prejudged you, we're sorry. Don't prejudge us. It's not black versus white. It's not, bully versus victim, but it's about getting along. It's about love. It's about overcoming that hate, because we are all together as one human race. We have our varieties, we have our colors, we have our diversity, that's great, but we're all part of the same human race. We're all God's children. We're all created in His image. Let's move beyond. Don't be a victim. Forgive. Don't have a victim mindset. Have a great week. Hope you've enjoyed this webcast. Go to our website, monday-motivation.ca. Check out previous webcasts. Join our mailing list. Leave your comments. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you next week on Monday Motivation.